Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica, and we're continuing the series PGM Pandemonium, where I take a look at 8 of my favorite IGS PGM games of all time, and today we're taking a look at Knights of Valour Superhero Special. Now normally I would have covered Knights of Valour 2 on this series because it's my preferred Knights of Valour game, but I've already done that on Unported Playlist, and I will leave a link to the description below. But this is where Knights of Valour started, and there are multiple versions of the original game, and I prefer Superheroes Special because look at this character roster. It is absolutely massive. You have so many options for playable characters. You have 20 people you can choose from, and that is massive for a beat 'em up game. Before we get too far involved, them, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But I've always loved the Knights of Valour series, and there are so many different games in this series. And there is some debate over whether or not this version is actually released by IGS, or if this is a bootleg. You can buy original carts. Are they bootleg carts? Are they real carts? No one really knows, because information about the PGS is so scarce online. I love this game. I love my cart. I consider it an official release, but does it really matter? And I know we've either already talked about the Gladiator or we'll be talking about it soon on the playlist, but this is another absolutely outstanding beat 'em up for the PGM, and it's a game that's only available on the arcade board. And it is sort of similar to the Gladiator, but it has a lot of different gameplay. We've lost the special meter, and now we have different items we can pick up on the ground and employ as throwable objects. In some ways it has a little bit of a connection to the Dungeons & Dragons Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara games for the CPS2, where you have that little bit of an inventory. You do not have to use that inventory whatsoever. You can just play it as a standard beat 'em up, but some of the items are going to become a lot more important later when the area is being swarmed with enemies, because I will say this game can be quite difficult. But I love what the game does with the graphics. The ship comes up from the bottom of the screen and we transition onto it. You're always going through different scenes and environments that are always married together with some really nice transitions. And basically the story behind this game is it's loosely tied to historical events, and each individual level is going to have some tie-in to Chinese history. Now, of course, not being Chinese or from China, I don't understand that, but you may actually know it if you are Chinese. But the nice thing is this game isn't English. It's not very good English, but it does exist, and this is one of the games that is listed for having been released in North America. Now, I've never seen a PGM cabinet or game in an arcade back when they were new. I've definitely seen them, in large arcades. Something like Galloping Ghost may have one because they collect everything, but I really don't know how much of any distribution the PGM got back when it was out. Because even though this is extremely similar hardware to the Neo Geo, these games are coming out in the late 90s all the way through the mid 2000s after the Neo Geo was kind of done. So it's really hard to peg when these games would have been out. But you'll see here we do get that little bit of story. In the 23rd year of the Han Dynasty, a battle happened, and we're going to be playing through that battle. So it is fun that it actually correlates to actual historical events. But you'll see here now that we're in nature, I love how this game looks. IGS did amazing things with sprite art. I've mentioned that in previous videos, but your character and all the enemies have a ton of frames of animation, and you will see there that we split out on a different path. This game has tons of branching paths. Sometimes you can choose 2 ways to go. Sometimes you can choose 3 ways to go. So this game is going to give you a near infinite amount of replayability for a beat 'em up. You can play this game 4 to 5 times until you've seen absolutely everything there is available, and that's great because with arcade beat 'em ups, usually it's just you go through the game once and that is it. But I love the boss battles as well. This dude with a giant spiked bat riding on this armored horse. They're just a ton of fun, and they're very creative, and I just appreciate what IGS was doing with this series, because like I said, this is just the first game. It's a revision of the first game in the franchise. You can start here. You can start with Knights of Valour 2. There's a Knights of Valour 3 on the PGM 2 and a Knights of Valour HD on the PGM 3 as well. So these games go all over the place as far as their hardware is concerned. But as good as these games look, I also think they sound spectacular. So in a minute I'll give you a chance to listen to the soundtrack. But again, I just love how this game progressive. This bridge comes down, these 3 dudes are waiting with chains to hit you, and when you beat them you can take that bridge up and decide what direction you want to go. I go right because I always go right. I don't even know if I know what's to the left. I may never have taken that path before. But go ahead and enjoy the soundtrack for about a minute. I'll come back and tell you more why Knights of Valour is a hidden gem beat 'em up that you probably never played. But enjoy. I really enjoy the soundtrack, and it is different than a lot of the IGS soundtracks because even though this is like Chinese mythological themed and historically themed, the music sounds more like kind of an adventure game beat 'em up than it does like the Gladiators that has those kind of stringed instruments that make you think of ancient Chinese music. And I just like that IGS is always playing around with the soundtracks, but I will say that their sound team did an excellent job of making different and unique soundtracks. Now, I will say one thing about this game that I don't love as much is that once you get towards the later levels, the game just starts piling on the enemies, and usually that's good. But when we start getting to the animal enemies, we have two black jaguars here, and they will just take hit after hit after hit. They're absolute tanks, and we're going to be fighting a couple dozen jaguars in a row. It artificially lengthens the game, which is not a great thing, but honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world. And if you do save some of your power-ups, and I'll show you which ones to use in about a minute, you can actually bypass them pretty quickly. But I love all of the personality of this game too. We have this dude down here who seems to just be drinking from a pot, and it looks like it's his helmet. I don't know where it goes, but he's just down at the bottom of the screen tying one on until you decide to fight him, and you can't progress if you don't fight him, but he's just down there having a little bit of who knows what he's drinking. But again, two more jaguars, and you'll see all of a sudden now we're fighting 4 jaguars. This game loves its animal enemies, and this one level can drag ever so slightly. I would say that Knights of Valour Superheroes is probably a B+ beat 'em up. It is not top tier, but it is really close. And now we get lions. I bet if you guessed right now what animals come next, you would be right, and that is bears. We have lions, jaguars, and bears, not lions, tigers, and bears, but it's pretty close. And I love that when you hit them, their tongue comes out of their mouth and they just kind of look a little derpy. It is a fun look. It's just a little bit repetitive, but honestly, I don't think I've ever beat a jaguar up in a video game before, so I'm going to give it a pass on the novelty factor alone. But you'll see here another boss comes in. All the bosses are creative and inventive, and you definitely continue on that animal theme. He kind of looks like a silverback gorilla, except completely in blue. But this game is going to put up a ton of challenge, and if you're looking for a beat 'em up that's not going to be a walk in the park, this is one that you're definitely going to want to check out. And the best part is there are so many different characters in the game. You have 20 people to choose from, so you're 100% going to find somebody who works for you, or you could switch back and forth between 2 different characters during your gameplay. And honestly, 20 playable characters in a beat 'em up must be some sort of record. If you know of a beat 'em up with more playable characters, leave me a comment down below, because I would certainly be curious what that is. But again, a little bit of story, never necessary in an arcade game, but you get it. And like I said, right as you start the next stage, it's going to be more jaguars. So if there's one strike against the game, so that the middle starts to drag ever so slightly. If you're going to play one Knights of Valour game, if you're going to buy one Knights of Valour cart for the PGM, I would say do Knights of Valour 2, but this game is awesome as well. It's probably like 98% as good as the sequel, but since I've already covered that game, we're going over the original. But whatever Knights of Valour game you play, you can't go wrong because they're all a ton of fun, and they're all extremely obscure. I never see this series mentioned in beat 'em up lists, and I never see it mentioned in top 10 beat 'em ups of all time lists, and I would say that at least one of them would qualify for that in my opinion, because there's so many worse beat 'em ups by larger makers than IGS. You're definitely missing out if you didn't play this game. But short of that, that's Knights of Valour Superhero Special. I'll be back next Tuesday with an episode in our IGS PGM series, and I'll have videos throughout the week as well. But leave me a comment down below. If you ever played this or heard of it, then pro tip, if you want to just take a break and walk around the screen, nothing will hit you as you meander around. Otherwise, hit like and subscribe, ring that notification bell, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.